When three girls from Detroit became the sound of young America, Diana Ross, the Supremes, and Motown royalty, there were three young black women from the Brewster Douglas housing projects in Detroit who became the most successful female group in music history, who made it acceptable for black artists to appear on mainstream television and perform for white audiences, who proved that black women could be glamorous and successful and crossover stars without compromising their dignity. Diana Ross, Mary Wilson, and Florence Ballard, the Supremes, weren't just singers, they were cultural ambassadors who helped break down racial barriers during the civil rights era while delivering hit after hit that defined the sound of the 1960s. If you were black and listening to the radio in the mid-1960s, the Supremes were everywhere. Where Did Our Love Go? Baby Love, Stop, In the Name of Love, You Can't Hurry Love. Songs with melodies so infectious and perfect that you couldn't forget them even if you tried. They wore matching gowns and wigs, performed choreographed moves with precision, and presented an image of black femininity that was polished, professional, and undeniably glamorous. They performed at the Copacabana for white audiences in evening gowns and sang show tunes, proving black artists could succeed in spaces that had been closed to them. They appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show more than any other group, bringing black faces and voices into white living rooms across America week after week. And at the center of it all was Diana Ross, whose distinctive voice and magnetic presence made her a star who would eventually outgrow the group and become an icon in her own right. But the story of the Supremes is more complicated than just success and glamour. It's also about friendship tested by fame, about dreams deferred and hearts broken, about the price of crossover success and the cost of Berry Gordy's Motown machine. Do you remember the first time you heard the Supremes? Maybe it was Baby Love coming through your transistor radio, that irresistible Baby Love, My Baby Love hook that you couldn't get out of your head for days. Maybe it was watching them on television, three beautiful black women in matching sequined gowns, moving in perfect synchronization, looking like nothing you'd ever seen before. Maybe it was your mother or older sister singing along, knowing every word, doing the hand motions from Stop, In the Name of Love, that iconic gesture of holding your hand up like a stop sign that became one of the most recognizable moves in pop music history. The Supremes started as the Primettes in 1959, four teenage girls from Detroit who loved singing and dreamed of making it in the music business. Diana Ross, Mary Wilson, Florence Ballard, and Barbara Martin, who left early, grew up in the Brewster Douglas housing projects, a place of poverty and limited opportunities, but also of tight community and big dreams. They sang at local talent shows and sock hops, practicing their harmonies and their stage presence, hoping to get noticed by someone who could help them break through. Berry Gordy, the founder of Motown Records, saw potential in them, but made them wait and develop before signing them. They hung around the Motown studio, doing background vocals, learning the business, absorbing everything they could about how to make hit records. In 1961, they finally signed with Motown and changed their name to the Supremes. But success didn't come immediately. Their early records flopped, earning them the nickname the No-Hit Supremes around the Motown offices. They were on the verge of being dropped when Berry Gordy decided to give them one more chance. That chance came in 1964 when Gordy paired them with the Holland Dozier Holland songwriting and production team. The first song they released together was Where Did Our Love Go? And everything changed. The song went to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, beginning a streak of success that was unprecedented. Between 1964 and 1969, the Supremes had 12 #1 hits, more than any American group except the Beatles. They became the flagship act of Motown Records, the proof that Berry Gordy's vision of creating the sound of young America could work, that black artists from Detroit could conquer the pop charts and reach audiences of all races. The hits kept coming in rapid succession. Baby Love, Come See About Me, Stop, In the Name of Love, Back in My Arms Again, I Hear a Symphony, You Can't Hurry Love, You Keep Me Hanging On, Love Is Here and Now You're Gone, The Happening. Each song was carefully crafted by Holland Dozier Holland, with lyrics about love and heartbreak that teenage girls of all races could relate to, with melodies that were instantly memorable, with production that was polished and professional. The songs worked on pop radio and R&B radio simultaneously, crossing the color line that still divided much of American culture. But what made the Supremes special wasn't just the songs. It was the total package. Berry Gordy understood that for black artists to succeed with white audiences in the 1960s, they had to present themselves in ways that were non-threatening and polished. He put the Supremes through intensive grooming, teaching them how to walk, how to speak, how to wear makeup and wigs, how to present themselves as classy and sophisticated. They took lessons in etiquette and deportment. They learned how to perform at upscale venues like the Copacabana in New York, where they sang not just their hits but also show tunes and standards, proving they could do more than just R&B. This strategy worked brilliantly for crossover success, but created tensions and criticisms. Some black people felt the Supremes were too polished, too white-oriented, that they were selling out black culture to appeal to white audiences. The wigs they wore, the European-style gowns, the careful enunciation, all of this felt to some critics like an attempt to distance themselves from their blackness, to make themselves acceptable to white people by minimizing anything too black about their presentation. Do you remember those debates in your community? Whether the Supremes were representing black people proudly or compromising too much for white acceptance? Whether their success in white venues like the Copa was something to celebrate or something to be suspicious of? These weren't easy questions, and black people had different answers depending on their politics, their generation, their understanding of what progress looked like. Diana Ross was increasingly positioned as the star of the group, with Mary Wilson and Florence Ballard relegated to background roles. This wasn't how it started. Originally, they were more equal, with Flo's powerful voice often taking leads on their early recordings. But Berry Gordy, who was romantically involved with Diana Ross, pushed her to the forefront. The group's name was officially changed to Diana Ross and the Supremes in 1967, making the hierarchy explicit and permanent. Florence Ballard struggled with this demotion. She had been the original founder of the group, had the strongest voice of the three, and couldn't understand why she was being pushed into the background. She began having conflicts with Diana and with Berry Gordy. She struggled with depression and started drinking. Her weight fluctuated. She missed performances and rehearsals. Finally, in 1967, she was forced out of the group and replaced by Cindy Birdsong. Flo received a settlement from Motown that seemed substantial at the time, but was nowhere near what she deserved given her contributions to the group's success. What happened to Florence Ballard after she left the Supremes is one of the saddest stories in music history. She tried to launch a solo career but couldn't get the support from Motown that would have made it successful. She burned through her settlement money. She ended up on welfare, living in poverty in Detroit, the city where she'd once been a superstar. She died in 1976 at just 32 years old, from cardiac arrest brought on by a blood clot. Her funeral drew thousands of mourners who remembered her as the Supreme who had been left behind, whose talent and contributions had been undervalued, who had been crushed by the Motown machine. For many black people, Florence Ballard's story became a cautionary tale about the music industry, about how black artists could be exploited even by black-owned companies, about how fame and success could be fleeting and brutal. Mary Wilson fought for decades to have Flo's contributions properly recognized, to make sure she wasn't forgotten, to tell the true story of the Supremes that included the pain and the injustice alongside the glamour and success. Diana Ross left the Supremes in 1970 to pursue a solo career that Berry Gordy had been planning for years. Her departure had been telegraphed since the name change to Diana Ross and the Supremes, and everyone knew it was coming. Her farewell performance in Las Vegas was televised, a lavish production that positioned Diana as a star ascending to even greater heights. And indeed, her solo career was enormously successful. She had hit records, starred in films including Lady Sings the Blues, where she portrayed Billie Holiday and earned an Academy Award nomination, became an even bigger star than she'd been as a Supreme. But the solo success came with costs too. Diana's relationship with Berry Gordy eventually ended, though he continued to manage her career for years. Her persona became increasingly diva-ish, with stories of demanding behavior and prima donna antics that were sometimes entertaining and sometimes troubling. She seemed to have internalized the star treatment to the point where she expected special treatment everywhere, which rubbed some people the wrong way, even as others found it fabulous and entertaining. The Supremes continued after Diana left, with John Terrell taking the lead vocal position. They had some hits and maintained popularity for a while, but it was never the same. The magic that had existed with the original lineup, even with all its tensions and conflicts, couldn't be replicated. The group went through various lineup changes, with Mary Wilson as the only constant member, until finally disbanding in 1977. For Black audiences, the Supremes represented something complex and sometimes contradictory. They were proof that Black women could achieve massive success in mainstream American culture. They opened doors that had been closed, appearing on television shows and in venues that had never featured Black performers before. They showed that Black artists could compete with and beat white artists on the pop charts. All of this was significant and worth celebrating, but they also represented the costs and compromises of crossover success. The polished, non-threatening image that made them acceptable to white audiences felt to some critics like a denial of authentic Black culture. The way Diana Ross was elevated while Florence Ballard was discarded felt like a betrayal of sisterhood and collective identity. The fact that Berry Gordy, a Black man, was the one making these decisions didn't make them less painful or problematic for people who had hoped Black-owned businesses would treat Black artists better than white-owned companies did. The Supremes' music itself has endured in ways that transcend these debates. Songs like You Can't Hurry Love and Baby Love are timeless, still played on oldie stations and covered by contemporary artists, still instantly recognizable and beloved by people who weren't even born when they were hits. The Holland Dozier Holland production set a standard for pop music that influenced everyone who came after. Phil Spector's wall of sound and the production techniques of modern pop music all owe something to what HDH created with the Supremes. Do you remember learning the choreography to Supreme songs? How kids on playgrounds and at parties would do the hand motions, trying to move in unison like Diana, Mary, and Flo did on stage? Those simple, synchronized movements became part of Black popular culture, referenced and recreated in talent shows and family gatherings, taught from older siblings to younger ones as part of the shared vocabulary of Black musical performance. The glamour that the Supremes embodied influenced fashion and beauty standards in Black communities. The wigs and gowns, the makeup and jewelry, the polished sophistication, young Black women saw this and wanted to emulate it. Beauty parlors in Black neighborhoods were filled with women asking for Supreme-style wigs and makeup. The look was aspirational, representing a level of elegance and success that seemed attainable if you could just get the right wig and dress and master that graceful, controlled movement. But there were also critiques of this influence, particularly as the Black Power movement gained strength in the late 1960s. The natural hair movement, which encouraged Black people to wear their hair in afros and reject European beauty standards, saw the Supremes' wigs as problematic, as symbols of internalized racism and assimilation. The contrast between the Supremes in their wigs and gowns and Angela Davis with her huge natural afro represented different visions of Black womanhood, different strategies for navigating racism and claiming dignity. The Broadway musical Dreamgirls, which premiered in 1981 and was later made into a film in 2006, was loosely based on the Supremes' story. The musical changed names and details, but told a recognizable story about a girl group from Detroit, a lead singer who becomes a solo star, a member who gets pushed out, and a Svengali-like manager-producer who controls everything. The musical was sympathetic to the Florence Ballard character, named Effie in the show, and critical of the Berry Gordy character, Curtis, presenting the story as a tragedy of ambition and exploitation. Dreamgirls introduced the Supremes' story to new generations and sparked renewed interest in the real history behind the fiction. Jennifer Hudson's Oscar-winning performance as Effie brought attention to Florence Ballard's story and her tragic end. The film's success led to more people asking questions about what really happened, about who was to blame for Flo's fate, about whether Diana Ross and Berry Gordy should be held accountable for how she was treated. Mary Wilson, who died in 2021, spent decades trying to tell the full story of the Supremes, writing memoirs that were honest about the conflicts and the pain alongside the success. She never achieved the solo success that Diana Ross did, never became the star, but she maintained her dignity and her commitment to honoring the group's legacy and particularly Florence Ballard's memory. She performed nostalgia shows, appeared in Motown reunions, and kept the Supremes' name alive even as decades passed and new generations knew them only as history. Diana Ross, meanwhile, became an icon whose influence extended far beyond music. Her portrayal of Billie Holiday in Lady Sings the Blues showed she could act. Her role in The Wiz as Dorothy brought her to new audiences. Her solo hits like Ain't No Mountain High Enough, Touch Me in the Morning, and Endless Love, a duet with Lionel Richie, kept her at the top of the charts. She became a gay icon embraced by the LGBTQ+ community for her glamour and diva persona. She continued performing into her 70s and 80s, maintaining a career that spanned 6 decades. But her relationship with the Supremes' legacy remained complicated. Reunion attempts never quite worked out, with tensions between Diana and Mary making full reconciliation impossible. Plans for the Supremes to reunite for tours or recordings would be announced and then fall apart, with fans left disappointed and the old wounds remaining unhealed. Diana seemed to want to control how the story was told, to minimize the conflicts and present a rosier version of history, while Mary wanted the truth told, including the painful parts. Looking back, the Supremes' impact on American music and culture is undeniable. They helped Motown become the most successful Black-owned business in America. They broke down racial barriers in the entertainment industry. They created a catalog of songs that defined an era and continue to bring joy to listeners decades later. They showed Black women that they could be successful in mainstream culture, that there was space for Black beauty and talent in places that had previously been all white. But their story also reveals the costs of that success. The compromises required, the friendships destroyed, the talent wasted, the dreams deferred. Florence Ballard's fate shows what could happen to those who didn't fit the mold, who couldn't or wouldn't play the game by Berry Gordy's rules. The tension between Diana's solo success and Mary's struggle for recognition shows how even within successful groups, hierarchies and power dynamics could create lasting pain. For Black people who lived through the Supremes era, the group represents a specific moment in Black history and culture. The moment when crossover success seemed like the path to progress, when presenting a polished, non-threatening image to white America seemed like the way to break down barriers and achieve equality. The later turn toward Black power and natural hair, and more explicitly political music, represented a rejection of that strategy, an argument that real progress required demanding acceptance on Black people's own terms, rather than conforming to white expectations. Both strategies had validity and costs. The Supremes' approach opened doors and created opportunities. The Black Power approach maintained dignity and authenticity. Neither was purely right or wrong, and the debates about which path was better continue today in different forms, as Black artists still navigate questions about how to be successful without selling out, how to reach mainstream audiences without compromising cultural identity. What's your favorite Supremes song and what memories does it bring back? What do you think about the tension between crossover success and cultural authenticity that the Supremes represented? How do you feel about Florence Ballard's story and what happened to her? Where do you stand on the debate about whether the Supremes were empowering or compromising?